Good afternoon, everyone. I will call the meeting to order for the county board. Things might be just a little slow today because, as you notice, we're starting with the new system, and we've got Kara today instead of Pam. So I won't pick on her, but maybe she'll be faster, you never know. I'll have to answer to Pam for that, though, too, when she comes back. We'll start with then the moment of silent meditation and pledge of allegiance. And please remember, everyone that's in the service to the public, emergency responders, etc. There's a lot of them. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item we have is approval of the minutes from the December 16th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Marvin Klosterman, seconded by Jerry Erdman. If there's any questions, comments, or corrections? Okay, seeing none, then we'll do this by acclamation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Good to go? Okay. Is there anyone in the back that would wish to speak under public comment? Anyone? Okay. Seeing none, then we will move on. Item number 5, motion to deviate from the order of the agenda if necessary. Motion by Randy Young, seconded by Deb Nofke. And I believe we can do this with acclamation too, right, Tony? Yes. Okay, yeah, we can do this by acclamation. We'll save the hard stuff for you until we actually get to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item number 6, Chairman's report. Okay, the one note I have is on the admin coordinator position. We have some more applicants. We will be interviewing again tomorrow. We have it scheduled in the afternoon, and we'll see what the committee comes up with from there. If there's a candidate we think that's well qualified to take the position, well, we'll make an offer then. If not, I guess we'll move on. The only other items I have is, it maybe should be noted just for the record, that it's much more than 34 years ago that Deputy Stoltz now died working for Shawano County in the line of duty. So if you want to remember them a little in your thoughts and prayers. And I also have a note here that Charlie O'Brien, if there was some of you that knew him, passed on the 23rd, and he was quite involved, I'm told, with the Fair Association and did a lot of work with that. And Pam notified me that a former county board member, Barb Schmidt, passed away on January 20th. And some of you may remember her. I don't know, Arlen probably would. He's been here for everybody. But that's maybe a little before, that's well before my time. So with that, I asked Teresa if she could give us a little update on the COVID and vaccination. Don't beat her up too bad, because I've been kind of beating her around already. She's doing her best to try and come up with answers that you really can't answer, yet people can't.
Okay, so I guess for the, when I look at this, I always think of either contact tracing, testing, and vaccines. Those are the 3 big things that we're doing. So for the contact tracing.
Terry, Could you pull the mic down a little bit?
Sure. Contact tracing? Can you hear me?
Tap on it once, Terry. Yep, it is, just gotta get a little closer. That way,
Okay.
Pam was specific that I gotta make sure everybody talks into a mic today, because then it's recorded, and it'll help her to do the minutes when she actually does the minutes for the meeting.
Then I think, how do we clean this? So I always think of contact tracing, testing and vaccine statuses, so that's kind of where we're looking at. And with the contact tracing, with our positivity rate, our rates really have decreased for positives. We're at 5.9 as of yesterday. And on the 11th of January, we were, even it's just decreased. It's like 11%, and then it went down to 7, and now it's 5.9. That's all good stuff. Over the holidays, there wasn't a lot of testing. We're working with, it's not ThedaCare, but this gentleman works out of ThedaCare, but it's a federal government initiative to grab the rural of the rural areas for testing. So Shawano School started it for their staffing when they all went back to school. They wanted to kind of basically do screening for the faculty and some students. If there was like an event coming up, it was more of a screening. So if an event was coming up or a fine arts event, that if you were not symptomatic and you have not been known to be by somebody, but you just want to, like a blood pressure screening, you want to be screened what your baseline is. And they've had a lot of success with that. That kind of got the conversation going, okay, what about other schools? So we reached out to Gresham, Menominee County, or the public school as well as the tribal school, Bondwell, Tigerton, Wittenberg, Burnham Wood, those kinds of things. So Gresham grabbed that opportunity, so they have been going out there. And Menominee County has really, really embraced it. So Stockbridge Munsey by Bowler, they already have a great community support. So the school superintendent was going to kind of see what the temperature was of their staff, if they were interested. So far, they have not been. So that's kind of where it's at. But so we are increasing testing, and we're still staying low with those numbers. So to me, that's the good news. As far as the vaccines, I know this is kind of burning on everybody's mind. Right now, Wisconsin, as of this week, my understanding is that we have 700. They've opened up the 1B with 65 and older, so it's not all of 1B. It's just the 65 and older plus your 1As. That opens it up to about 700,000 Wisconsinites that are eligible to be vaccinated, and we're only getting 70,000. So that kind of puts it in perspective. People that want it now. People that don't want it don't care about that, I suppose. But it just kind of puts it in perspective. I have, being a small health department, we were kind of like, okay, what can we do? Reached out to the larger healthcare systems. They're kind of running into their convolutions, and basically they haven't really been able to help out Shawano County and Menominee County. I am working with Menominee County and the tribe. We're kind of having some conversations on what can we do to support both ways. Shawano County, I guess I'm at a point where I'm using my resources. We did get funding, which up to yesterday, we didn't know if we got that funding. So the funding did come in for us. It's over 700,000. So that kind of opens up opportunity. Okay, what can we do now? Jerry's been awesome, or Tom, I'm sorry. Tom has been awesome to voluntold our extension to help us out, which they've been great about doing that anyway. And we do have an agency that we're working with, possibly getting kind of like a mass clinic type of thing. What I will say is the mass clinic's not going to look like your flu clinic where you can just walk in and do this. And I know if you've worked with ThedaCare at all right now, you know that you have to have a scheduled appointment, because with the COVID vaccine, there's a lot of prep work before you get the vaccine. With registering, it has to be a schedule. It's getting the right dose, making sure that you're, of course, the poke in the arm, and then observation after that. So it really needs to be structured And with that, we need to get everybody trained as well. So it is going to take a little bit of time, but just kind of know that we're really working diligently so that we can kind of get it in Shawano County. And then hopefully we'll get the vaccine. But I know Johnson & Johnson is working on it. Hospitals are moving to Pfizer so that the Moderna, which is a little bit more, it doesn't have to be frozen, is a little bit more available to those of us that are on a smaller scale. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions?
Oh, hold on, Gene.
Paper, the leader, and there was a number given in the leader, and my wife called the number. It's in Green Bay, and you don't have to be from Green Bay, and she made reservations for us for February 12th. And my son called after that, and him and his wife are on the February 10th. So you can get in there and get your vaccine, but you have to have it by appointment. And so I just thought if we don't have a place here in Shawano County, it's a good thing there's two numbers. Well, there's really, there's more than two numbers, but the two numbers were published in the paper.
In the
But
Shawano Leader?
Pardon?
In the Shawano Leader?
Yes, it was,
Okay.
yes. And if you, Mr. Chairman, if you want me, I can call and get that number for you. for
Well,
this
otherwise,
meeting.
I'm sure Terry will
can
be able
follow
to
up.
find it. And I believe Theta Care is now taking them here also.
It goes a little up and down, but they are. I know that they really are, there are times where they kind of are running out, so they have to wait another week to get those vaccines. So
But I
they're really
believe they're
making a
taking
good,
appointments now for
Yes.
the next set, like you had said, is eligible. So you can start possibly calling them even right here at home. But how far out it's gonna be, who knows?
Gwit Pharmacy is another one that's been taking names and working with folks. So they're actively giving vaccines as well.
Okay, Sandy, Stanky.
I guess my question is, one of my coworkers, who is a doctor where I work, called the health department because one doctor that we have at our clinic got a shot at Langlade County at the health department. I couldn't figure out why Langlade could do it, but we couldn't. And the only thing the department told her was, you have to call your primary physician. Well, unfortunately, with Theta Care, a lot of people no longer have primary physicians because they trade them out back and forth so often, nobody knows who their primary is. So can we get a number where your department says, this is what you gotta do if you don't have a doctor? Instead of telling them, you gotta call your primary care provider, which I don't know if anybody in this room would really know who their primary doctor is. Well, like I said, they gotta have a number or something for these people, instead of telling them just to call your clinic.
Right, and that's been the direction too, I agree with you, but with the changing out, and that's good to know, but I will follow up with that number, and if that's available, well, at least it's some other direction.
That would be good, because people are confused, they're getting anxious, so I'd like to see that.
Hold on. We got, is that all you had, Sandy?
Well, he just asked me a question, he asked if Langley County was doing shots, and obviously they are. Our doctor went and got a shot at the Langley County Health Department. So,
And please realize that every health department is set up very different. A lot of them have a lot of different resources. We just happen to have not a lot of resources for what it's worth. So there are other counties that are doing it. Brown County was not doing it because they've got the large hospital systems. So it really kind of, what does it work with? For me, it was a little bit of the financing because I wasn't sure where we were going to go with the financing. Having that in our wheelhouse now really opens the door so that we can kind of move forward. But I've got one nurse and me, so that's kind of we're so limited in what we can do with just us, kind of thing.
Is that it, Sandy? Okay. Ken Capelli.
Maybe I just got the answer to the question, but if you only have two people, I was going to ask at some point in time, will we be able to get a vaccination in your office?
What I'm hoping for is, we kind of really started, like I said, we're kind of working with that. Yesterday, I had conversations with our medical advisor, Dr. Jasmine Wiley. She's been trying to work with the Theta Care so that we could kind of get, a little bit more navigation through that, but the barriers. Actively talking about what can we do here? What can we, and I'm excited because there's part of me that just wants to really share it, but I'm not there yet. Sooner than later, yes, I will let our board know what the steps are and where we're at with things. So I'm actively moving forward with it. I just have to rally the troops.
Okay. All right, Ken. Aaron Damerl.
I guess you answered my question on whether or not the county would start doing vaccinations and in-house. And I guess I'm just curious, what resources do you need to make that happen, to get the most amount of people vaccinated that want to be vaccinated?
At this point, what I'm thinking of, having them come into our office is not going to be efficient. What I'm really looking, yet, eventually, yes, but we've got to get the masses kind of taken care of. So what I'm actually working with our agency, so that our contracted agency of the contact tracers, they also do other nurses and that kind of thing. But looking at a space where we can have this, maybe having 5 stations, and the state, or the state does have might be the CDC, created a software system so that it's kind of like Theta Care, where you have to become a patient of Theta Care, or you have to create an account. That's kind of what this app would be. And for those that don't have phones or don't have internet or whatever, when they call in, they'd be able to kind of register that way. If you're in the correct phase at that time, it automatically asks you for, an option for making an appointment. If you're not, then it just kind of thanks you, and we'll reach out to you when they have the availability of the vaccine for that phase. That's a very high overview, but there are things that are really coming into place so that it's making it easier for those of us that really don't have the staffing on a regular basis to make it happen.
Is there anything that the county board can do to speed up this process so that people are getting vaccinated? What do you need from the county board to make this happen, or what do you need from us?
Well, one of the things, Aaron, is we can't always just throw money at it. In talking with Terry, one of the problems are there's not just too many doctors or nurses just sitting around with nothing to do right now. To find somebody that actually would physically come and do it. And then there's, they got to be covered by an insurance for liability reasons. And it just kind of keeps snowballing. You can't. That's why I asked her, I said, what do you have to go through? I was going to try and tell my sister-in-law that she'd have to come down here for a day and give shots out. But it's not that simple, because then she's no longer working for Aspirus that day. She's on her own. She doesn't have no liability insurance then or anything, so she can't come do it. There's a ton of paperwork you still have to do then, once you would get somebody that would come and do it.
And I'm getting the liability aspect of it, but there's also, if you can solve that, there are probably retired doctors and nurses that are willing to even volunteer to get people shots. And it's a communication thing too. You got 27 people on the county board here that know a lot of people, and to make something happen, I guess, in communication on how.
Right, and even
what we
on a
need.
volunteer basis, if I get poked, I'm on your turf. But what we can do, and we're putting this on our website and Facebook, that, because I have a lot of colleagues too, or a lot of retired friends that are like, hey, I can help you. How do I do that? The Wisconsin Emergency Assistance, forgot the R, it's called Weaver. And it's for preparedness, it's for disasters. If there's a tornado or whatever, you're kind of on standby. It's kind of like the professional National Guard, if you will. We're putting that, the best way for that, because they go through all that background check, liability, they kind of take that on because it's a volunteer, it's a Wisconsin state volunteer system. So that kind of does that loophole of, it's not on us anymore, but it's a pool of professionals that have kind of gone through what they need to, so that we can call on Weaver. And Jim Dave,l our emergency management, would be the one to request that. So he's got that kind of thing. So we're I'm really working on it, honestly. So what you can do is really support and help us, like, okay, if there are people that are interested in your professional world, referring them to our website. We're going to put the Weaver on there, but that's one way. And honestly, I knew about Weaver, but I never needed to have it, and it just really, the light came on this week. It's WEAVR.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
is that it, Aaron?
It is, thanks.
Teresa Serrano.
Yes. Hi, Terry. I just want to make certain that all county employees understand that this is not mandatory to have to take this vaccination. It is a choice. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes, it's a choice. That was our executive committee. And you can never, as far as I'm concerned, you can never make people do something that they don't want to do. That's never
Just
appropriate.
wanted to make certain that everybody was aware of that.
And the thing is too, I mean, I know we're all anxious to get the vaccination, but please, let's take our time, let's do this right. But we still have to do, even if you've had COVID, you don't know what level of immunity you may have. So that's why it's still recommended to get the vaccine. There were two things I was thinking of. Sugar Shack, can't remember it. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah. So,
Okay, is that it, Tess? Yep. Jean Hoppy.
I had a meeting yesterday with NewCap. I'm on the NewCap board.
Into the mic, Jean?
Pardon? Oh, I had a meeting with NewCap yesterday, and they have a lot of nurses. And we talked about this, and I think if you contact Cheryl Dietrich, in Oconto,
Okay.
and I'll give you her number after the meeting, but she could lend you some nurses, and she's interested in helping on this. Then I was thinking also that we have the park, so we need space. We have the park, we have the ice arena, and so for space, we got that. Only thing we have to do is let's get it going, because I think all the people in Shawano County are waiting for Shawano County to get going on it because Oconto is doing it, the county, and they are giving shots in Oconto Falls now. And so it would be nice if we could get going on this and help the people here. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, Deb Nofke.
So we have $700,000, but we're being held up by a pile of bureaucracy and paperwork and liability issues and lack of vaccine.
We just got the money though, correct, Terry?
We just got it this week.
Yeah.
But no vaccines. It just kind of boggles the mind that
Yeah, the vaccine is really, I mean, you have to, and they only give you a week allocation. So on Monday, you would have your ducks in a row and say, okay, we're ready. We've done all the training, which they have to approve of to make sure that all the training is done. You would order your vaccine. You would get it it would go in Tuesday. You would get it Thursday, Friday for the next week. They're only allocating by the week. So that right there is a snag.
Yeah,
And
it
then
just-
when you order and you need 700,000 and you're getting 70,000, that right there, I know of a couple of providers that they ordered 200 or 300, but they only got 20. So that's a little bit of the snag as well. There's a lot to this. There's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes that we don't have any power of, or Wisconsin, because then it goes to the federal government.
Okay, is that it, Deb?
Yep, just
Jerry?
Yeah, I realize, 700,000 is a lot of money, and it can do a lot of things. And the biggest problem, and what I think most people are disgusted with, is the fact we don't know what's going on, what's happening. And I get calls from people, and I tell them, well, I know you can go, there's phone numbers you can call, but I don't know exactly who I should be directing them to, because it seems those individuals haven't gotten word from the state yet exactly what to do either. There's so much that's up in the air. It's just unbelievable. Now, the VA called me in. There was 3 people waiting at the door. They had a whole great big chart. If I had this, if I had that. And I had to answer no to every question before I could go to the next station. There I had to fill out a bunch of paperwork. Well, then that lady gave me to a nurse that took me in to get a shot. Well, the nurse had her back to me, but asked me what arm I wanted it in. So when she turned around, it was different. Big smile on her face, and I said, it happens. But after she got done with me, then I had to go to a waiting area for 15 minutes. So there could have easily been 10 people, 10 nurses that I had contact with before I ever got out. So this is gonna be a big operation, but I guess the biggest problem is communication, what's happening. So if we can do that, I think that at least will answer some people's questions.
We're really trying to keep our website up to date as much as possible, and it ends up being, you know, you can't, we do on a weekly basis. So we just put the Weaver on there yesterday. Well, I have to ask Nick because we just talked about it yesterday, so I'll make sure he does it today. We just put on the main page, what was that, Monday? The website for COVID, the DHS website.
Oh, I didn't check it yet specifically.
I want to say I thought we did, but on our health department webpage, but also on even the main page, some information, and it ends up taking you to a website, but we're trying not to get you so buried, because I hate it when you go to a website and it's like, okay, what am I looking at? So we're really trying to keep it as specific as possible. I have no problem if you want to call me and say, hey, Terry, this needs to go on here, or what do you think about this? I mean, that's another way to help, you know, with the communication.
Okay, good, Jerry?
But I agree with you, there's a lot of parts.
Terry Tipton.
Thank you. I believe probably the simplest way is if people have MyTheta or MyBellin or whatever to ask for an appointment through that channel. The phone calls flood the system. People can't make appointments or are on hold forever. There's opportunities for making appointments that people aren't utilizing.
Right, and yeah, with ThedaCare, I know you don't have to be a patient to register.
Okay. All right. Joel Miller.
Very briefly, thank you. Terry, thank you very much. You mentioned 2 words, or mass vaccination event, 3 words, and you also mentioned National Guard. That's your avenue. That's your assistance, that's your setup, that they've been coming out to Stockbridge for months now and assisting with testing. They haven't vaccinated yet, but testing, and also with a mass vaccination event, they can assist with that. So please have Jim make his connections and work out and see. So all these questions here, all these folks that can answer to their constituents as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
The governor just finally approved, I believe it was last week, to where the National Guard can do mass vaccinations. And Jimmy is working to get us on the list, but like usual, you have to apply to get on the list as a county, I believe. And then they'll discuss like a site or where and when and how many. But the first thing you have to do is get on the list and get picked. So there's 71 other counties that are trying to get on their list too, and it's hopeful, but it's the same thing as everything else. everybody's looking for it, and they want it right now. And I myself, like I had said to Terry, I'm very disappointed in what the state had set up. That's gotta be at least 4 months ago, I think I was watching 60 Minutes, and they had a piece on there about how it was gonna be handled by the military, the distribution out to the states, and they had storage sites and everything identified, but then it was left after that pretty much up to the states to pick it up. And they didn't pick a whole lot up. I mean, they don't have any organization, or they would have known that, okay, it's gonna go to this. Here's what you have to do to be certified. The National Guard can come and help you do this, but it's just all, well, maybe this. Try calling your hospitals, and I don't know who made the decision to give it to the hospitals at that level. And I'm sure they're not doing it for free. They're generating some revenue too out of it. So they don't want to take that back from them. It's all part of the vicious circle. So, well, there's no other questions, I guess. Thank you very much, Terry. Oh, go ahead.
With the National Guard, and you're right, with the testing, they were absolutely phenomenal. They were given license to be able to support the communities and that kind of thing. What the barrier that I ran into with the National Guard for this, and unless it changes, but this was as of this week, is that their support is to give you 5 people to help in your already figured out clinic. And it's a one-time thing. So it doesn't even go to the second. It's a one-time thing. And I thought, well, Jimmy, I don't want to spend my time applying for something that's not sustainable. So that's unfortunate, but so that was another barrier. So after a lot of conversations.
And I was just gonna add to that, I still don't understand where you can watch the news and they show everybody driving up in cars, and like they get a shot and they drive away. But that does not meet anything that the state tells you have to have, as far as staying around in case there's any adverse reactions or anything. So I think they're being pretty disrepresentative of what it takes to get it done. So, well, okay, with that then, I guess, thank you, Terry.
Thank you, guys.
We will move along. Let's see, the next item of business we would have is reading of petitions, memorials. Do we have any? Okay. Pam did let me know that I should make mention that we received a thank you card from Kathy for the memorial that we sent for her father, Robert Van Lannen, who had passed away recently. And I'm sure we all feel for you, Kathy. That's a tough thing to go through. So thanks for the card back. Okay, on to the big business now. Item number 8, resolution number 1-21. Kara?
Okay, resolution number 121, approving lease agreement for solar power on county farm property. Whereas Shawano County owns approximately 630 acres of land known as the county farm property, and the Public Property Committee has been analyzing offers to lease approximately 500 acres of the property to entities in the business of renting property for the purpose of installing solar equipment to produce solar energy. Now therefore be it resolved by the Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 27th day of January 2021 that it hereby approves the attached land, lease, and solar agreement on the terms set forth above and as included in the agreement. This was submitted by the Executive Committee and the Public Property Committee.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Mark Boland, seconded by Gene Hoppy. Okay, Jerry, do you wish to make any comments on it or turn it over to Steve?
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're on.
Okay, this all came about probably a year ago, when the public property, Steve first got notice of somebody that was interested in looking at the county farm, to build a solar farm. Probably because it's close to the ATC lines, probably because it's real close to that big station they have there. But yet, we've been going back and forth and finally got a hold of, or worked with one company, this company here. Solar energy is, in my mind, the way to go in the future. Really, there isn't any harmful things in my mind with solar. We're looking at enough to maintain, at least try and get the acreage we need to get 50 megawatts, correct, Tom?
Yes.
Yep, because that would give us a better rate. In the long run, I think one of the main reasons we're looking at this is because we definitely, as a county, need some additional revenue coming in to the county. The county, in my mind, and I've said this time and time again, with the levy limits, sooner or later, the county is going to be borrowing money to maintain their budget, simply because everything is going up and the revenue has been going down. We have staff we are losing simply because they can go someplace else and get a big raise. Like I said, things go up. We need to be looking at a sustainable revenue source. This solar farm, in my mind, is an ideal situation for the county. It will outlast most everybody on this board. But yet again, it's something that we can count on if it actually happens. There's still steps that have to be taken to get to where something is being built. But yet in the long run, I think this is a shot in the arm for a county and a shot that we can't not try and get. If we're gonna try and maintain what we have in the county, we need to be looking at things just like this. So I'm all for it. I was for it the day we first started working on it, simply because I know the revenue stream. But it's a good thing, I think. And I hope the board agrees that we need to be doing this simply for the benefit of the county. And in the long run, this is going to probably help taxes because we won't be borrowing for other things that we would have to borrow for that could be taxed. Sure, you know, there's two things that are certain: taxes and death. But I think this, in the long run, is something we really need to do. So I'm behind it 100%. If Steve wants a comment further, or you, Tom?
I have one request to speak, but I think maybe it's best if we let Steve, he can go up and explain the map a little bit. It's should be the same map as what is on everybody's desk. And he can maybe lead you through a little bit what this is. But remember, this is not the exact final map of where anything would be built. Some of these areas that are up here may be modified, moved. We don't know exactly what they need. And they have to, I'm sure, check with the DNR for wetlands, get wetlands all identified. And there's a lot of variables yet in this yet. So I'll let Steve go through the map and then I'll put my plug in.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As was mentioned, this is just a starting point. Nothing is set in stone at all. What we've done is we've identified on the map the parcel that is the former county farm. That's the area that's outlined in that orange line, both on the north side and south side of Highway 22. It was felt by the Public Property Committee and some of the staff members who got together and didn't want to, you know, preclude all of the previous recreation that goes out there. So some of the areas were for lack of a better term, cut out of the agreement. And those are the areas that are surrounded by that dashed yellow line. That's designated wetlands by the DNR. This is the Millennial Forest and the walking trails, cross-country ski trails, snowshoe trails, that kind of stuff. So that was taken out. The sledding hill is still, you know, available and for recreation. It's not into part of this. As Tom mentioned, basically this is right now it's a blank palette because they're going to do their due diligence and they're going to figure out where they can and where they can't. The final amount of acreage that they're going to cite upon is going to take a couple years worth of work for everybody to figure out. So it's just that, you know, right now we're starting out with, you know, not the entire parcel, but approximately about 500 acres of it. And so that's what they're going to be working with. Some of these lines will definitely change. I'll go on record right now. These lines up here, like I said, this is your opening snapshot. Things will change as to where they actually start citing all of, you know, their facilities. And with that, that's really all I've got.
Okay. I was just going to run through it real quick for everybody because I don't think everybody here read the whole thing, basically. What we're agreeing to we would be today is the first time it would be a period of up to 2 years, or excuse me, up to 5 years, and that would give them 5 years to do their study and evaluation and figure out just how it would lay in there, what would exactly stay, what would go. And that's where the mapping would change somewhat. After that 5-year period, if it takes them that long, typically we've been told by Geronimo and other companies that it only takes 2, sometimes 3 years, and they're ready to move to the construction stage. Once they move into the construction stage, then the $850 or $825 a month payments begin. Before that, we still have an agreement that is on our public property for next month that we can rent it out for farmland. And if they do anything real adverse that would be damage or cause a problem for Mr. Rosenow, there would be some compensation involved for him for crop damage and that. After that time, if they decide that they're actually going to build it and we have a full agreement with them of just where we're going to allow it and where it works for them and everybody, we may have to move a few of these hiking trails a little bit, you know, to accommodate something. But that's all things to be decided yet in the future. We do receive then also upon the revenue you see there, it's, we can get payment one of 2 ways also from the state. Underneath shared revenue, utility aid. We can receive, now there's a lot of stuff that's involved with this. If Geronimo becomes on our site and any other sites total in the state, if they get over to 50 megawatts, then they become what's considered a qualified utility. Then they pay a tax into the state on the power generated and on them sites, and we receive reimbursement back from that. If they never achieve 50 megawatts and they stop less than that, then we get paid through, well, in Tony's language, you like that Latin noise in the state, an ad valorem payment, which the local property assessor will assess the farm and assign a value to it, and then we get paid based on that value as like personal property. The town also would receive a payment out of this. If it's the ad valorem payment, then we get, the county does, we get 6 mills, or basically $6 per thousand of evaluation, and the town gets 3. If it gets to be there big enough, and it would move to the megawatt payment, then we get paid for each megawatt generated. We get paid $2,333, and the town gets $1,666, and I'm leaving off the cents. Actually, they get another 66 cents and we get another 33. But then they would be paying us by the megawatts. And there's no use of projecting exactly how many megawatts are going to be generated because we don't know until we have an actual design done and all the permitting is done, like through the DNR and areas where they can't build are identified. So there is a potential for a fair amount more of revenue to come from this. And as Jerry had said, we can always use the extra money. I mean, there's lots of things. And as far as deciding where it's gonna go, that hasn't really been approached yet because, well, first of all, there's a lot of things that have to happen for this to go right. The only thing we would have to decide now is if we do this agreement of where we would spend the additional $25, and that's based on a 300-acre minimum that they would pay us for the time they're in their initial period of up to 5 years. But if they start sooner, then the larger payments start sooner. And I believe the portion through the state would be determined then by the size of it. And like everything else with taxes, that would first, I'm guessing on this now, don't quote me, it may first come the next year after we would start production. I didn't get an exact answer and I didn't question that. I was talking to an individual from the Department of Revenue and that was the information that he gave me. So I don't think there's anything, sure we are sticking our neck out, but the revenue that it's gonna generate, we can still fund the money that goes to the fairgrounds from the farm rent. And we still have roughly, I don't know, 210,000 to boot, I believe, because this will generate about 248. So, and that's just 300 acres. If it gets to be larger than 300 acres, there'll be a larger rent and more from the tax side. So I guess I'll stop trying to beat it to death and I'll move on to any questions or comments. Kathy?
Yeah, first of all, I thought we terminated the land lease with the farmer.
We sent him the notice, Kathy, because if something would have happened right away this spring, to fulfill the current agreement we had, we'd have to notify him 90 days in advance,
Okay.
which we did. But it's also on public properties agenda for next week now to redo the lease that has the provisions written in there. So he has a clear understanding that if Geronimo gets done with their studies and they want to build in 2 years, we're basically letting him know way ahead of time and we're redoing the lease. So he doesn't spend a ton of money on fertilizer and everything else and find out that, well, you just lost your lease now.
Okay, that's what I'm hoping, that we're assuming that he will re-sign, because if he doesn't, if I understand this right, we're only getting $25 an acre, which is approximately $7,500 a year. And right now, aren't we funding the fair about 15,000? Pardon? 35,000? So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if let's say the farmer doesn't release, if that's the correct word, and we're gonna be shortfall,
I wouldn't
where are
know,
we gonna find that money?
I wouldn't know, Kathy, why he would not redo the lease.
You wouldn't, but yeah, I mean, we're assuming a lot, but some, you
Right.
never know. That's what I mean. Are we comfortable to take it out of general fund, the 35 minus 20, 25,000 out of general funds to give the rest of the fair that we'll be short? If we can't, we should find somebody to rent it. But I'm playing the devil advocate here in case we don't.
I had other inquiries that were wondering when the lease was gonna come up,
Well, I just want to
again,
make
on
sure,
the farm property to rent.
because it's been very clear we want to keep funding the fair.
Right,
And if we don't have the income from this partial, or this former county farm, that we will fund it out of our general funds. I just want to make sure this is going to be funded somehow.
yep.
That's my only
There-
concern.
There are chances to take. Steve, you have a comment on that?
Yes, sir. I met personally with Craig Rosenau and discussed this whole thing with him, and said what our plans were to be going forward. We felt it only proper to offer it to him first. And if he's not interested in taking it over on an annual basis, then we will put it out for bids.
I just want to
but-
make real clear, if we don't have any income from that, and we said we're gonna fund the fair, we need to fund the fair somehow, general funds or something.
Maybe we'll borrow the money from somebody who's got a lot of ATC money left in their town.
It's not within the town.
Well, you got the money left in your town. Is that it, Kathy?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. John Ainsworth.
Thank you. I don't think either of you mentioned, I think I listened carefully as to what is going to happen if they fail. They get halfway through and they find a bigger tract somewhere. How do we end up if they don't complete the agreement?
You're saying, John, if they just walk away before they build anything?
Before or during, or
Okay.
even after they've, maybe, I mean, things have been built that don't create a profit for the builder.
Yeah.
It could happen, and
It-
I think you should go through what.
It is
what is written in
possible.
there.
I'll turn that over to Tony, but once they would start building, I cannot see a company that would invest hundreds of thousands, if not millions and millions of dollars, and they would just walk away all at once.
I can't either, but I've seen government-supported installment of features on farms that were then abandoned.
Yeah. Hopefully, they maybe would start and build it and abandon it, because then we get it. And we can collect all the money. Tony, you want to answer, could answer to that?
There's actually, it's a very good question. I'm glad you asked it so that everybody can kind of focus on it. If you take a look at the sixth whereas clause, we kind of talk about what happens if they terminate. And it's true, they can terminate at any time. As Tom had mentioned, if it's during the development period, the 5-year development period before they come in and start building, well, then, they've paid the annual amounts of rent that are due, the 25 bucks per anywhere from 300 to 500 acres per year, whatever it turns out to be. But they can walk away. Those payments to us are non-refundable, so they don't get anything of that back. If they do start to build, and as Tom pointed out again, it's unlikely after they put those kind of investment, that kind of funds forward, that they would walk away. But, if something unusual does happen, we have a provision in here that they have to pay the rent all the way through the time period it takes for them to come in and remove that equipment. And they have 12 months to come in and remove that equipment and return the land to the way it was, pretty much the way it existed prior to the lease. So that's the way leases like this operate. It's pretty straightforward. It's a reality. It could happen. And we've got terms in the lease that take that into consideration.
Is that it, John? Okay, yep. Arlen Tober.
Yes, I would have a question on the map. You take on the bottom of the page that 80 acres, and if my memory serves me right, that's wetlands. And is that included in, you're talking about 500 acres? And if it is, I mean, the DNR, I don't think is going to allow us to use the wetlands for this here solar system, and then we'd be down for sure 80 acres. And my other question is that airport down there, is that actually being used yet? And is there a place, if it is that a place on there, someplace we could move it?
Oh, for the RC? Flying club?
RC airport, yeah.
Steve?
Yes, your first question concerning the potential wetlands and things like that. The reason we went with 300 acres is Mr. Rosno currently has 284 acres that is cropland. And to find an additional 16 acres on this part, the parcel that was up there before, I think it won't be a problem at all. So I'm fairly confident we can find 300 acres. Again, you're right about the potential wetlands and things like that. And, again, That's kind of out of our, the county's local purvey, because when it comes to the state, depends on what they want more, wetlands, or do you want clean energy? And we know that there's a push for both of those. So, those two sides may fight one another a little bit on that. But I'm fairly confident that we can get it with 300. As far as the RC airport, it is used not as frequently as it was originally. And whether or not we can find a flat area within the parcel, that would be something that we would have to explore, because you're going to put aside, a chunk of property that's probably half an acre. Well, that's $400 lost in revenue. So, it's, and that's per year. So that's something that the county would have to make consideration for. There's plenty of other flat spots around that RC planes could fly.
As far as to answer the question about the wetlands, Arlen, I went down and I had Dave Poffenbarger print me off a map that showed what's currently mapped wetlands right now on record. And them 240s that you're talking about, I believe they're numbered number 3 and number 4 on the very bottom there. They only show just a thin strip along the, I believe it would be the east side of number 3, and a small strip along the south side of number 4. So the rest of it isn't mapped as wetland right now.
Because I know we were gonna be logging that off, and it was just so soft that the guy couldn't get in there.
Yeah, but it may have been wet or soft at that time, Arlen, but it's not shown on the map to be a wetland area of any size. Just a couple little strips they have on here. So. Randy Young.
Could we have just a little bit more information about the company? Maybe how long they've been in business and what else they do besides solar?
Did we want to ask Kara to, we actually have,
A representative is here, yeah.
Kara?
Come on up if you would like to. And you can give them a little information. I know right now from some of my own research, they have, I believe, 2 other solar farms that are ready to be built of approximately 100 megawatts each in Wisconsin. And so if they build even one of them and they build a 5 megawatt here, we move to that megawatt payment, which is more substantial than the other one. So I'll turn it over. You can introduce yourself, please.
All right, everyone hear me clear? Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Board. Appreciate your time. My name is Kara Heffelbauer, formerly Kara Bakey, with Geronimo Energy, well, National Grid Renewables, formerly known as Geronimo Energy. We did a name change in October. So a little bit of history about our company, and then I'll also do a little bit of background about myself as well and my history and time there. The company was founded close to 2 decades ago by a farmer named Noel Ron. Noel was approached by a wind developer for both land that him and his brother owned to participate in a project, and he did not feel that they were being treated fairly or that they were being treated with respect, and he said, you know what, I can do this. And he did, and at that time it wasn't overly sophisticated, and he was going around drawing on napkins, mapping transmission lines and trying to figure out how things worked. But fast forward, and he ended up putting up turbines on him and his brother's land, and that was the genesis of Geronimo Energy. We started in solely just wind and solely as a develop and sell. In the years back around about 8 years ago or so, we started adding solar into the mix. You started with community solar gardens and then getting into the utility scale solar gardens, and what we're talking about here today would be considered utility scale solar. About 4 years ago then, we added an operational arm of our company, so we were no longer a developer that just developed and sold projects to utilities or sold projects to other independent owners and operators. And then in 2019, we were acquired by National Grid. National Grid is a utility. We are owned by National Grid Ventures, which is their independent arm, as a lot of utilities have independent arms that develop projects for them to own and operate as well. And that is, in a really brief nutshell, the history of our company. The Midwest has always been our bread and butter. We're headquartered out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's where I came from. I've been on the road all week, though, so I've been all over the place this week. But in Wisconsin, the Midwestern market, Illinois, Minnesota, and Michigan is a little bit more advanced in their solar landscape than Wisconsin is, and a lot of that had to do with just tariffs and a lack of a renewable portfolio standard. But in the recent years, while there is some tracking for the state to have certain renewable energy in their mix by X amount of dates, really what's driving it now more is the efficiency and utilities wanting to procure solar. So that's what we're seeing, and Wisconsin, again, a little bit later than the other states, but we've been around here for a handful of years, and we do have 2 projects that are, we're actually partnered with Alliant Energy on. They're proposed to be our offtake for those. One is a 50 megawatt project in Rock County in the town of Fulton, right outside of Edgerton. And another one we're working on with them is in the town of Lamira in Dodge County near Fond du Lac. So we do have other assets in our pipeline as well. Those ones are in various stages of development and do not yet have contracted offtake. But yeah, we're very happy to be here, and I'm also happy to answer any more questions that the board may have. And it just so happened, again, I didn't plan this, I swear. I was meeting with landowners in the area today, and I happened to drop into Steve's office, and it was like, why didn't you come on over to the board meeting? So I'm glad it worked out, and it's definitely meant to be.
Okay. Dennis Knack.
I didn't see any reference to the town or residents that would be neighbors of a solar farm. I know they're not real attractive. How much contact was there with the town?
I went last Monday and sat down with the town chairman, and he was very receptive to it. And his exact words were, he thought it would be very good for the county. So that's the response I got. He had nothing bad to say one way or the other at all. And as far as technicalities go, any zoning that would have to be done would be the same as in the case of the sand pit, to where we control our own zoning on any property that the county owns.
That's not necessarily true, Tom. That only applies for certain types of uses, like a quarry or other types of facilities. Here we actually have an agreement. They have to comply both with our ordinances and the applicable town ordinances as well.
Okay, and this agreement covers, that's written in there then?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Good thing the brains of the operation spoke up.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, that would be great if we could do that, but it only applies to certain special types of uses. This one doesn't qualify. But I had a question, if I could, Tom, for Kara real quick.
Sure, go right ahead, Tony.
You were listening to the dialogue. We had a lot of questions and explanations and things. Did anything stand out to you as being inconsistent with what your understanding of the agreement and the plan is moving forward?
No, absolutely not. Chairman did an excellent job summarizing things, and just as an overall, one thing that I can clear up, the lease, assuming the lease is executed as is, the development period payment revenues is for that full 500. So any if we end up having to parse out, whether that be because of wetlands or, subsurface things that make solar development unsuitable, that would be updated, and then that number would be reflected in those extended term payments, which start at the construction period. So the full lease, or the development lease period payments at the 25 per acre are for that about 500, which I believe equates to somewhere around 12,000. 500.
Was it 3, Tony?
3 what?
300, I thought.
No, the minimum, once they, what Kara's saying, and it's a good point she's raising, is right now we have an exhibit that's going to be attached, and that's going to be 500 acres, okay? So that's the property. That, during the developmental period, is what
Okay.
they're going to pay the $25 on. At some point in time, that might shrink a little bit. We hope it doesn't, but it might, through their due diligence, drop down to 400 or 350. At that point in time, then it becomes whatever it changes to. But from the starting point, it's 500 acres that's included in that exhibit. So that's what they're paying the $25 an acre on.
That's the difference where you showed me the one time then, where actually the property and the difference in the wording from the property to the site.
The premises.
For the premises.
Yep, that's
Okay.
exactly right.
All right.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah. So excellent summary, and a couple different things that I can just elaborate on as we go through the solar development process with any project. That longest lead item on anyone is interconnection. We'd be looking to get this project in the 2021 interconnection cycle for MISO. That's the Mid-Independent System Operator, the transmission operator that studies the grid for this region. And that process itself can take about 2.5 years on the short end to upwards of 3. So that's why that development period is a little bit longer. I always think it's worth noting and explaining, because that's something that's out of our control. There's nothing I can do to speed that up. That just takes its time, and there's lots of other, as the transmission network itself is very interconnected, different regions, if they're behind, that can trigger delays in the region that we're in here. And another thing I'd just like to note, as I mentioned, been working with other landowners in the area, so we are looking to have the project size be larger than just the county farm itself. And, part of that too is it's usually better to have a project that has a little bit larger of a community base and not just one landowner. And also with a larger footprint, that would mean larger revenue into that utility aid formula that the chairman was getting into. And he did an excellent job explaining that as well.
Is that it, Dennis? Okay. Arlen Tober.
Yes, I was just wondering, this is quite a big project for us. It's quite a magnitude. But it sure would be nice if we could have had some pictures up here of some of your projects that are working, so we know what, it's kind of an idea what it's going to all look like.
Sure, go ahead.
Absolutely, and more than happy to provide resources and follow up, and just to say too, as this marks entering the lease, and Steve noted this too. It's no guarantee, right? So this is just step one. There's plenty of time for us to still be coordinating and me to have a presence with the community, and that's what we would certainly want. Going through. Assuming the project is large enough that it would be the land use permit would ultimately come from the Public Service Commission and come from the state. That threshold would be if a project was at 100 megawatts, which is double what the county would like to see at minimum in terms of revenue. What we work on with the local municipalities is a joint development agreement. And that joint development agreement outlines a lot of the things within the project's permit application, but also is able to touch on if there are any any additional concerns or, things specific to the site and specific to the communities that make sense to add in there. So just wanting to further elaborate on that because, a decision today on the lease is by no means the last time everyone's going to see me or, the last time to get input or be involved. It is a very long and robust process, and I'd be more than happy to, take everyone through if we want to do more of just an informational presentation too on solar as well, and pictures of some of our operational sites and just how the technology works and what's going on. If that's of interest to the board, happy to come out and do that anytime.
Okay. Marvin Klosterman.
I just have, I have a question, just to clear my mind. This is going to be a panel system, which means that they're much closer to the ground. It's not going to be a windmill type of thing?
Correct. It's for a solar lease. So most of the utility scale solar installations right now that are going in are tracker. So that those would be rows running north, south, and tracking very slowly east, west throughout the day. So you won't notice it unless you were out there staring with binoculars trying to see it happen. It would be like watching paint dry. Most of those systems are right around 8 to 10 feet in height. Sometimes you have systems that go a little bit higher than that, and that's usually because of variation in topography and us trying to minimize earthwork, or if you're in an area that isn't necessarily a wetland, but maybe prone to holding, a half a foot or a foot or even a foot and a half of water in a back-to-back 100-year flood event or something like that, you may want to have your system a little bit higher. But for the most part, you're looking at about 8 to 10 feet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the second question I had, it kind of referred to what Kathy was talking about. I think it's paragraph 7 of the whereas, that the Agricultural Society shall continue to receive funding in the amount equal to what it currently receives for leasing the cropland for crop purposes. However, the money that we're getting is a whole lot more than we're getting for the leasing for crops. I'm hoping that that amount will be increased somewhat to the Ag Society so that they can do some of the projects that they would like to do too.
That's a possibility, Marvin. But before we actually know what we have to work with and how much is coming in, we really can't be spending the money until we know for sure. But that's all a possibility. Nothing is cut in stone of where we would spend the money, how we would spend the money. It's just that this would establish, if it all works out in the end, a very substantial source of revenue for the county for quite some time. Randy?
So neither you or Steve or Tony or the zoning department has had any opposition from anybody to this project? Have you heard from anybody that opposes it?
I have heard none, zero. Not a call, email, anything.
The people I've talked to about it has been, I was going to say, overwhelmingly in favor of it. I haven't heard anybody who said anything bad about it. It's a good revenue stream, greater than what we get now. It's for a solar energy purpose, which is going green in the direction everybody wants to, and can be done without interfering with some of the other things from a recreational standpoint out there. So at least everybody I've talked to has been very, very optimistic about it.
And as far as that goes, last week after it was approved at the admin committee, or even before that, when I sent that email out to everybody saying that it's time to let the cat out of the bag, I tried to get some public input. I contacted the radio station, and he called me back and had a few questions on things, and I answered them. And I did call the newspaper, and I left a message to have Lee call me, or Tim Ryan. I received no call back from the newspaper, and I do have a number for Tim Ryan, and I tried that, and I got no answer or no call back. So it's not like we were trying to hide it or anything.
And as far as input that I've had very few discussions with anybody. I will let you know that when I met with Craig Rosenau, the current farmer that's leasing the property out there, and talked with him about the possibility of this going forward, he says, yeah, I know, I have property too, and they contacted me. So they are talking to all the neighbors in the area out there.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Deb Nofke.
It's green, it's clean, it's a good revenue stream, but Marvin's comments are still are probably very representative of what my concerns are with this project, is that we can't look at it as, well, let's just give away some more money to somebody, any group. We should have a more realistic plan laid out for what you would do with the potential revenue. Not some kind of free-for-all to just spend like crazy. If we were responsible, the first thing we would do is looking at retiring any debt that we have. When you look at the amount we're paying in interest,
How do you know, Deb, how much we're gonna have?
well, you've got a pretty vague idea here. You should at least be some proactive planning instead of having all of a sudden being like the state and the COVID vaccines, where all of a sudden, well, you knew it was coming and nobody did anything.
Okay, we spend $1 million a year. We commit right now to spend $1 million a year.
No, we don't commit, we plan.
Where, or we plan, commit, plan. How do you plan without knowing what you have to work with? We can say we're gonna give,
You have minimum-
35, we're gonna give 40,000 to the fairgrounds. Okay, how much do we have left to spend? Don't know, because we don't know how much we're gonna get.
You have minimum amounts in here that you could forecast what you have. Everybody has some idea what they would do.
You can't forecast, Deb. How many acres is it gonna be? Sure, go ahead. There's how many acres, how many megawatts? There's a lot of variables. What we're trying to do today
Minimum-
is,
Minimum of 300. I
is
mean,
we
you
have
do
to make, sooner or later, we've been negotiating this, and sooner or later, we have to make a commitment to them if they're gonna continue to spend their time working on this. Without making a commitment to them, they're not gonna keep working on this and say, well, we're gonna wait now and, we're gonna work on this for 4 years and be ready to build it. And then somebody decides to say no, they're not gonna invest all that time in it. And as far as spending the money, that's all to be determined in the future. We can't even get an agreement assigned here right now. We're having a problem, let alone worry about the money we're gonna get. That to me would be more like the state and the federal government, where they're spending the money before they even have it.
With all
I'm
due respect.
trying to wait until we have it, then we'll have some idea what to do with it.
With all due respect, the problem isn't the company or the concept. It's our lack of preparation or foresight to determine what we would do with those money. And every time that gets mentioned, people actually get quite defensive. You just did it again.
Yeah, because it's ludicrous, Deb. You cannot just project, we're gonna have this much money, maybe. So maybe we'll spend it like this, maybe we can spend it like that, but if we get this much, we'll spend it like this. There's no answer there because you gotta have a figure.
What was that? I'm sorry? May I, Tom?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Tom has stated it as clearly and as well as anybody can, and that is, we need to get this agreement approved so they can come in and determine even if they want to move forward. And if they want to move forward, then how many acres are they going to use? And then at that point in time, some years down the road, we'll figure out actually what the money we're going to get, not only from the lease, but from the megawatts they produce based on that threshold, how much we get in tax credits and other payments from the state. To talk now about what we're going to do with whatever amount that money turns out to be at some point in time, if we do get it, I think would not be an efficient use of the county board's time. I think we ought to stick to the agreement and get it signed, get it moved forward so they can do their job, and then we can start to answer some of these other questions once some of these variables get removed.
Okay. All right, moving on. Jerry?
Oh, I'm up. I thought Joe was up. But anyway, yeah.
Oh,
this is-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, give Joe a first.
Okay, Joe, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to echo Jerry's sentiment and say from my seat, I'm in favor. And number two, it would be a hope down the road that individuals and residents and their potential utility bills, electric bills may see some decrease as of what we are projecting here in this county. Thank you.
Okay, then I guess since you were in between there, Jerry, I'll go back to you before
Okay,
Kevin.
thank you. Yeah, this is a lot of discussion over the fact that just today, had I been an attorney, I would have spoke just like Tony did. What we're doing here is to get an agreement today to move forward. That's it. We're turning our back on it if we don't at least look into it. And this is something, I'll keep saying it until I'm off the board. We have to look for revenue. Our revenue streams are drying up. We have employees that we should be treating fairer. But we can't do anything if we're refusing to look at an opportunity. And that's what this is. Do I have to give my left arm just to get this signed? But this is an opportunity we should be looking into. Not turn our back on it. At least let's get the ball rolling. That's it. I'm done.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Kevin Conrad.
I'd just like to say I'm in favor of this and call the question. Take a vote.
I guess that means we got to vote, Tony?
Has anybody who chimed in to speak not been given a chance to speak? I think we're on our second and third go-around. So if everybody's had an opportunity to speak, then we can move forward.
The only one would be is John has a request to speak, and he spoke once already.
So then it's up to you. I mean, if you want to move forward without giving them an opportunity, you'd have that prerogative.
Well, I think we might as well move forward. I don't think they're armed. Nobody's going to shoot at me. Well, that don't work that way either. We got to take comments or we got to move on. And I think we pretty much beat it to death already. And to me, it's a no-brainer. There are risks involved. Yes, there are. And there are unknowns involved. But we got to look at it. We got to make an attempt to try and generate more revenue. It's part of, in my opinion, we're making the best use of what we have to work with. So with that in mind, I guess then we go to a vote, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You all set? No, you're not set yet. Okay, so if you are in favor of resolution number 1-21, you would vote yes. If you are not in favor, you would vote no. Okay, we have 26 yes, 1 no, so the resolution has passed. We'll wait for the computer work here to get done. You're good? Okay. With that, then we will move on to item number 9, resolution 2-21, to continue it. Oh, go ahead. That's where I'm supposed to stop.
So resolution number 221, to continue with the self-insured workers' compensation program. Whereas Shawano County is a qualified political subdivision of the state of Wisconsin, now therefore be it resolved by Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 27th day of January 2021 that it does again resolve as follows. Number 1, provide for the continuation of a self-insured workers' compensation program for county employees that is currently in effect in compliance with Wisconsin law. Number 2, authorize the Shawano County Clerk to forward certified copies of this resolution to the Workers' Compensation Division, Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. This is submitted by the Executive Committee.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Joe, seconded by Aaron Damrow. I guess the executive committee would be up to me to speak, but this is pretty much a standard resolution that has to be done annually. And there's really no big changes in it. I don't believe there's any changes in it from the past one. So are there any questions or comments? Seeing none then, if you are in favor of resolution number 2-21, you would vote yes. If you are not, you would vote no. Ken? Okay, 27 yes, 0 no, so the resolution has passed. Item number 10, resolution number 3-21 to cancel checks.
Resolution number 3-21 to cancel checks issued by Shawano County Department of Human Services, Lakeland Industries. Whereas the Shawano County Department of Human Services, Lakeland Industries, has issued checks to the individuals/entities on list attached to this resolution for aluminum can recycling. Now here therefore be it resolved by the Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 27th day of January 2021 that said checks set forth on the attached list from 2007 through 2018 totaling $2,041.15 shall be and hereby all are canceled, and the funds shall revert to the originating fund balance of the Lakeland Industries Recycling Program checking account. Submitted by the Executive Committee and the Human Services Department Board.
Do you wish to comment on it, Richard? Got you on.
Yeah, some of these checks are down as much as 50 cents, and it really doesn't pay to keep them around anymore. And some people dump off cans, and they don't even know who dumped them off, or it's no sense keeping them around. It just, nobody even wants them, so.
It's some of them where you issue a check and they think they're making a donation anyway, so they just don't cash the check, and they're waiting and wondering, everybody is then, if it's ever going to be cashed, correct? Okay. Aaron Damrow.
What is the county's policy for canceling checks?
Oh, yep, table's on, Nita.
In these types of cases, we try to get them cleaned up as quickly as possible. They've let this one go a long time. They should have cleaned this up a long time ago. If somebody does come back off of this list and say that they want their money, we will reimburse them. In fact, we've already had one person come back. And our policy has always been that we really do due diligence to contact these people before we get them on this list and write them off. So the treasurer's office helps us a lot with that. So they've been doing a lot of trying to get in contact with people. We're trying to change the process on this a little bit as well, so that this doesn't continue to happen.
I believe most of these are like well over a year old, correct?
Well, this is 2007.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, is there a written policy that after such a time, we, as the board, go through and vote to cancel?
Yeah, in the policy, it's every 2 years based on past history and state statutes.
So, I mean, I think this is at least probably my second board meeting that we've talked about canceling checks. And I'm wondering, is this something that we could take up, like?
This account is different than the one that we did last month, or last month. Last month was the actual accounts payable that we have for everybody. This is specifically to Lakeland Industry. And so this is different outside of that.
I believe there is a policy, isn't there, Tony, on canceled checks?
Yeah, there's definitely a policy, and every year we, as Nita was alluding to, we do it on an annual basis, canceling those checks that remain outstanding for a certain amount of time period. And that covers basically everything in the county, but for this separate Lakeland Industries. And this is, I've been here 14 years, this is the first time we've actually went through it and did it for Lakeland as well. So it's, we do follow a pretty good procedure, and this was just kind of the unusual case regarding a subsidiary, if you would, of the county that needed to reconcile their books.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion to approve by Aaron Damro, seconded by Teresa Serrano. Okay, now we're official. My mistake. All right, then we are up to Deb Nofke.
Cubby and Aaron may have just covered both the issues I was going to speak on, but mainly to make sure that people were aware that if they had a sizable check that they really hadn't ever gotten, that there was a recourse or a way to still cash that check.
Correct. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, then if you are in favor of resolution number 3-21, you would vote yes. And if not, you would vote no. Richard? Would you like to vote yes or no, Richard? Okay. 27 yes, 0 no. Therefore, the resolution is passed. Okay. We also have a few, well, actually, only one annual report for the child support. So, like usual, them standard, if there are any questions or comments that you would have on that, you can contact the department and they'll provide you an answer. Otherwise, it'll be placed on file. Item number 12, report by Finance Committee on general accounts and claims. Is there, I believe I need a motion to approve on that. Motion by Steve Geets, seconded by Terry Tipton. Is there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, then if you are in favor of paying the general accounts, you would vote yes. If you are not, you would vote no. (27) yes, 0 no. Therefore, the resolution has passed. Approval of committee minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Kathy Lupke, seconded by Mark Boland. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, then we can do this by acclamation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item number 14, we have a couple of appointments to do, and we'll do each one individually. The first appointment would be to appoint Wayne Nishke to the Land Conservation Committee as the Farm Service Agency representative for a term of 2 years or until a successor is appointed. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Ken Capelli, seconded by Gene Hoppy. Is there any questions or comments? If not, by acclamation, all those in favor of appointing Wayne Nishke, all would say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. The other appointment we would have would be to appoint Penny Hagbeck to the Nicolay Federated Library Board. Motion by Milt Markwart, seconded by Kimberly Leffel. If there are no questions or comments, then by acclamation, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item number 15, board member comments or new business to be considered at a future meeting. Okay, Joe Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, and I don't know if this question can be answered at this time. If not, I'm okay. Yes or no? Was the Shawano County Sheriff present January 6th in Washington DC? Don't have to answer it.
I do not know.
Okay, so I'm good. I just needed to get the question out. Thank you.
Okay. Aaron Damro.
I'm just looking for an update on the county's codification of our ordinances process, and I know Pam's not here today.
No, I think you might have to contact,
Nita just raised her hand.
oh, okay. Nita has an idea?
I just talked to Pam about that last week. She was wondering if the money was out there now. So just now that it's the beginning of the new year, she's going to start the process to get that ball rolling.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. Sandy Stanky.
This is actually more of a comment. I want to thank the people on this board that were here years ago when the foreclosure of Franklin property was put through, and that this board said, no, we're going to make sure that it goes to the municipalities first before we release it to the public. I'm just happy to say that our Franklin Park project, we did stick a lot of money into it for the city, but it is a great success. As you see the new lineup that's going to be at Franklin in the park on Thursday nights, which brings vendors and people from Neenah, Wausau, all over the state to come to these. So I want to double thank everybody that helped preserve that. The municipalities got the first chance to do something with it. So thank you very much.
Okay. Jerry Erdman.
Yeah, just one quick comment. I'd like to thank the deputy clerk for stepping in and doing a good job.
Yep, I'm glad she could make it back today. Otherwise, I'd have been sitting up here alone.
You'd have
And
been
you
up
would have
a
really
creek.
had a mess, you guys would, on your hands. Any other questions or comments? Richard?
Yeah, my pad isn't working here. But next month, Joe Miller asked a question about the drug court. And
Yep.
we'll have it on the agenda for next month.
Correct. That was requested already to have that on there for discussion. There appears to be a little lack of usage to where we have a program that is funded and could possibly help, but we're not getting a very good response out of the two key players in it. So that will come up next month. Any other ones? Okay, seeing none. Claim report of County Board Supervisors mileage and per diem for today's county board meeting. Motion to approve by Kathy Lubke, seconded by Gene Hoppy.
The amount is $2,025.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, then if you are in favor of getting paid today, you would vote yes. If not, you would vote no. Oh, Richard? Okay, Richard voted yes. Okay, 27 to no. And that takes us down to next meeting date is February 24th, 2021. And we're up to the motion to adjourn. Motion by Teresa Serrano, seconded by Bill Swatala. Any questions or comments? None? Motion to adjourn then. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.